Let's dive right into this explainer, looking at Cold War skies, the secret struggle for the U-2 and A-12 ox cart. Between 1954 and 1974, the ultimate high ground wasn't actually just the edge of space. It was a vicious, downright cutthroat bureaucratic battlefield right in the heart of Washington, D.C. Today, we're going to track the really intense evolution of the CIA's manned overhead reconnaissance program.
To really grasp this era, we gotta ask ourselves, who truly controls the skies during a Cold War? The stakes literally could not have been higher. With the constant, looming threat of global nuclear annihilation, gathering overhead intelligence wasn't just a military priority. It was a life-or-death mission for the entire planet. And while you might naturally assume the main battle was purely against foreign adversaries, well, an equally massive conflict was actually raging internally.
Looking at our timeline from 1954 to 1974, the world was absolutely gripped by deep paranoia. To survive, the U.S. desperately needed unprecedented eyes in the sky. So this journey goes from the program's highly classified inception in 1954 right through massive internal power struggles in the 1960s and wraps up around 1974 when this era of manned overhead innovation basically concludes. It's a story of continuous forced evolution driven by extreme international pressure. So let's talk about the assets themselves, this revolutionary manned reconnaissance. To solve this massive intelligence gap, the CIA had to completely reinvent itself. They transitioned from relying on your traditional spies on the ground to suddenly managing cutting-edge aerospace engineering. This shift fundamentally altered the CIA's core structure. They weren't just gathering whispers in dark alleys anymore, right? They were managing the most advanced aerial assets in human history.
And the technology they built was straight out of science fiction. We're talking about the legendary U-2 aircraft and the blazing fast A-12 ox cart. The U-2 flew so incredibly high that its pilots literally had to wear primitive spacesuits just to survive. And the A-12? It flew so fast it could actually outrun incoming surface-to-air missiles. These were jaw-dropping marvels designed to operate right at the absolute edge of physics.
But here's where it gets really messy. Introducing these extraordinary machines sparked an intense, bitter turf war, pitting the CIA against the U.S. Air Force. The core of the issue was simple but profound. The Air Force firmly believed that flying planes and managing military reconnaissance belonged exclusively to them. The CIA, however, argued that flying over hostile foreign airspace during peacetime wasn't a military operation at all. It was covert espionage. Think about it. If a military pilot gets shot down, it could easily trigger World War III. But a civilian CIA operation, that gave them the crucial plausible deniability needed to avoid an absolute apocalypse.
And as the historical records note, the struggle between the CIA and the U.S. Air Force to control the U-2 and A-12 Oxcart projects was very real. This was far from a petty workplace dispute over funding or office space. It was an outright struggle for ultimate control. Both agencies fiercely believed they were the only ones qualified to hold the keys to this paradigm-shifting technology. This bureaucratic deathmatch was just as central to the history of these programs as the very titanium used to build the planes.
So we end up with this massive clash of technology, bureaucracy, and international politics all colliding at a breakneck pace. Whoever won this internal turf war ultimately controlled the flow of the most critical, highly classified intelligence directly to the president. During the most terrifying moments of the Cold War, like the Cuban Missile Crisis, the agency that owned the skies owned the narrative and arguably the fate of the free world.
As you can see, this conflict created a dramatic snowball effect. First, developing groundbreaking aircraft immediately triggered that bitter battle for agency control. And then, the sheer weight of managing these space-age assets, combined with fending off the Air Force, ultimately forced the CIA into a radical restructuring. They had to evolve to meet the unprecedented technological demands of the Cold War, or honestly, they risked losing their relevance entirely.
And that brings us to the Directorate of Science and Technology, a dedicated branch formed in the 1960s principally to develop and direct reconnaissance programs. The permanent legacy of this Cold War rivalry is still visible today. Because of this monumental fight, the CIA was forced to institutionalize science. It completely changed the agency's DNA forever. It hardwired advanced scientific capabilities directly into their core operations, paving the way for the modern technological espionage we see today.
So do these bureaucratic struggles still beset the successor programs guarding our skies today? This historical rivalry leaves us with a really provocative thought. If these incredible machines sparked such a bitter struggle for control decades ago, how are those exact same turf wars impacting the top-secret intelligence programs guarding our skies right now?
It's a fascinating question, and one that forces us to look at modern intelligence gathering in a completely new light.